Let's talk about How to Disappear, directed by Leonard Molnar, Michael Stumpf, and Robin Klengel. I hope I'm pronouncing your names correctly, by the way. This is an animation film from Austria that delivers a very powerful anti-war message. The video game Battlefield becomes the plot device to discuss the history of deserters. So Lana, you go first and tell me what you most enjoyed about this short.
Actually, I really like the idea to film the movie inside the game, so to use the online game as the visual part of the movie, which is amazing. I mean, I have to remind that last year the best documentary was took by the film Swatted. The film has basically the same visual idea of using the online game structure to visualize the story, which is amazing. I think it just started this tendency, and I personally really enjoy this kind of films. So what do you think?
I agree with what you're saying in terms of the visual dynamic, also because now it seems to be the era of virtual reality. So it almost had that kind of component as if you were within the video game. I loved Kathy Tanner's narrating voice, almost as if she were a sociologist.
Her voice is so beautiful.
You also liked her?
Yes.
And I felt that it was a magnificent tribute to this idea of disobedience as a productive force in society. They also quote Karl Marx. And I felt that this idea of the deserter forcing people to rethink the logics of war, the negative aspects of nationalism and this spirit of sacrifice was very, very powerful. And also the idea of video games was presented not just a mere tool of entertainment, but also as something that was aesthetically consumable. So it was a very strong critique that I found very impressive.
Totally agree. I like the question that the movie asked to the audience, like why we choose the game, but we couldn't choose the war in the real life. It's not our choice, actually. So it's something bigger that we couldn't control, but we can control the game. So what's the game means for us? So all these deep questions we don't really ask ourselves, in normal life, but this is so simple and so deep in the same time, so I definitely like it.
Yeah, and one more thing, I think it was particularly emblematic that the avatars had their weapon that was inseparable from their limbs. So this also presented a very strong metaphor in the message that the film is delivering. So praise to the filmmakers.
Yeah, that was really great. Thank you to the filmmakers. Arigatou gozaimashita. Let's talk about Corman's Eye Drops Got Me Too Crazy, directed by Ivan Cardoso. This is an animation film from Brazil that brings to life a nonsensical and ironic psychedelic trip. So, Chiara, what do you think?
Oh, there's so much to say. I love this mishmash of genres. I also found some elements and references to milestones of cinema. For instance, I saw a tribute to Luis Buñuel's Un Chien Andalou with the focus on the eye. I saw a tribute to Oscar Fischinger's visual music because there's a lot of those elements that brought me back to my childhood with Fantasia and not just childhood. And it was a wonderful jabberwocky of ideas, images, sensations. It was like a comprehensive artwork with elements of surrealism, psychedelic rock. And as I was saying, yes, there is this tribute to the history of cinema, but I also found that Cardoso was very faithful to his own style that is defined as terrir. In Portuguese, it's the combination of terror and rir, laughter. So it is a comedic horror, and you also have these funny elements of the sexy chanchada comedies typical in Brazilian film. So it was very enjoyable.
Actually, when I first watched it twice. Just got the idea. When I first watched it, it reminds me the Russian avant-garde movies of the beginning of the 20th century, when Russian directors started to experiment with editing, the art of editing, like Kuleshov, for example, or Ziga Vertov. So all of them tried to do something really crazy without any instructions, how they felt. And it's basically, for me, I had the same feeling. I watched it like, oh my god, that's something really good. And you don't have to think about the story. There's basically no story. You have to just watch it and go deep emotionally as far as you can. It's a little bit of body horror, I feel like it. So it's definitely worth to watch it more than 2 times, I think, especially for the person who likes this kind of editing. It's unique for my perspective.
Yes, we can say it's experiential and experimental.
That's right. I like this phrase. Thank you, Kiara.
Let's talk about Drifting, directed by Han Xiong-bo. This is a film co-produced by China and the USA about a Chinese teenager who expresses his emotions by drifting his father's old taxi as his experience of the past and present intertwine. So Lana, tell me, what sensations did this movie leave you with?
Oh, this story is actually so deep, and I have to be honest, I watched it 2 times as well as with the previous one. Because first time I didn't get what the problem was, actually. But then I got it, like, the problem with the second kid and the family. And, like, I felt so bad for that guy, emotionally. Just a simple human feeling that sometimes the government makes you miserable more than the closest people in your life. Yeah, and some kind of just stupid rules makes you feel really bad for no reason. And you just couldn't get it, couldn't put it somewhere. You're alone. And I felt like even despite the fact he wasn't alone in the car, he was with his family, he was alone. He was totally trapped in his head in that moment, driving around. And yeah, I think this story is so touching and really can make someone cry. Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree on this idea you are presenting of being alone in a crowd, in a way, and also being alone amongst the people who are dearest to you. I thought that Han Xiong-bo very well presented also this idea of the confrontation between generations. And he also obviously unveils for us an important issue that was happening in China up until 2015, the one-child policy. Obviously, it was abolished after 2015. But the story revolves around that topic. And of course, there's also the element of homosexuality in a repressive country such as China. I thought that all these very sensitive topics were presented in a very delicate way. And I really loved also the cinematography of it all. So the visual element reflected with great delicacy the topics that were being presented.
Yeah, you're right about the visual part. What do you think about the metaphor with chickens inside the house? Did you notice it?
Yes, the metaphor with the chickens is also very emblematic. Would you like to tell me more about your take on it?
I got the idea about chickens only like after a couple of hours. I watched this movie and I'm like, oh, chickens are trapped in the cage and he's trapped in the situation. in his body, because there is no like open statement about his sexuality, how he personally feels, who is he for himself. We don't have this direct statement. We just have to guess. It's left for the viewer, for the audience. And we only have these chickens, and this guy, the boy, I think, is more deeply connected with these animals than with his parents, who's supposed to be closer to him than anyone. That's, I don't know, probably I'm overreading this thing, but this movie definitely, yeah.
Necessarily.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you that the beauty of cinema is when there are these elements of subtext and parallelisms. So there's a lot being told about the mood and atmosphere and the character's internal journey by showing other situations. And so, of course, we see these chickens and a cage situation. And, of course, they perfectly mirror the protagonist's state of being within the story. So, yes, very well pointed out, Lana.
Now, let's talk about Stars in the Sky, directed by Kasper Lind. This is a film from Denmark about an old man who receives messages from people who lost their loved ones and want to reach out to them. And he finds a way to spread these messages across the cosmos. Aww, that's so sweet.
So touching.
Yeah, it's so like heart-melting story. It's important to notice it's so simple. It's a really simple story. It's basically, from my perspective, there is no story. But it's so warm, sweet, and you definitely have to watch it during the Christmas night or something.
I agree. It's like it embodies the true Christmas spirit. And you know, I think that the most touching thing about this story is that, of course, we all ask ourselves when we lose our loved ones, what happens to them? Where do they go? There are those who believe in religion and they hold on to that. But as for myself, I'm not religious. I really found another connection to the continuation of our loved ones in this film because it somehow closes the circle of the universe. It goes back to the Big Bang. So we go back from where we came from, to the stars, to this powder in the galaxy. As a matter of fact, I believe I did read somewhere once that humans and our galaxy have about 97% of the same atoms. So I think it's very poetic that there's this continuation within the film. And it is just so beautifully shot.
Yeah, that's actually, let's trust the science about this 90-something% because I really like this idea. I'm not a religious person as well, but I like this cosmos idea that we're not alone in general. We're biological part of this huge world, and we are coming from this world and we're going back one day. Like, to be honest, it took me some time to realize what this robot thing about and what it's actually doing. But this old man is so sweet, melting my heart.
Yes, and you know what? Since this is the Sapporo Short Film Festival, I found also an element of Shintoism, because Shintoism is about reconnecting with the ancestors, and in a way it was blending Shintoism, science, the cosmos in general in a magnificently poetic way.
Me and Totoro.
Oh, Totoro!
We agree, yeah?
Let's talk about Love is a Country by Gwenaëlle Moulsant. This is a film from France about what it means to be a couple. Camille is a dancer and Thomas is a radio presenter. We observe how their day-to-day activities intertwine with the love bubble they created.
So, what do you think?
So, Lana, you go first. You tell me.
Okay, it's too French. It's typical French short movie. It's nothing bad in this phrase, but you recognize that it's made by France or something like this. So, and it's simple story as well about our feelings, and to be honest, I wanted to find some kind of a conflict there, but then I realized that it's just about how people love each other and how they mean a world to each other. And they created this world together, and this is not for the one day. It takes a lot of time to have these small things, small traditions that you have together. Yeah, and you just can't get it in one day. It takes time as to build a country. So it's really direct metaphor for me.
Yes, and I'll jump right in because this brings to my mind Rome wasn't built in a day. And one can say the same thing about love. The true and meaningful love stories that last through time are the ones that have been built on very strong foundations, and it's all those elements that have been put together. And yes, this film is toujours l'amour, all about l'amour, and it's beautiful in the way it portrays how the love couple has developed its own language, when they call each other certain names, and they set rules for themselves. We see how Camille and Thomas represent a particular country, the one of the whimsy snugglers, the croqueneurs. But then we shall see, very swiftly towards the end, there are other countries of love created by other couples. So what you were saying at the beginning about this film being very French, indeed it is. And I also think it very much resembles the French comedy renaissance that is happening in these past few years. I mean, so many films come to my mind of comedies from France that are very witty, very poignant and existential, and this is a mini version of them, a short version of that whole country and world.
Yeah, that's interesting that you noticed that. I didn't think about it, but it's good. It's a really good idea. Actually, yeah, I'm thinking to watch this movie again from this perspective. So this is the reason why we are doing this podcast.